They picked up the phone and called someone. They talked face to face. And guess what? People really enjoyed it.
Well, so there's two things that we should talk about.
As a whole family, we ended up talking about that.
We live in a well-connected network, and for that network to function, we need to
talk to each other. Talk to each other. Talk to each other. Talk to each other.
It's Note to Self, and this is day 4 of Infomagical Challenge Week. I'm Anoush Samarodi, and congratulations for making it this far. If you're new here, hello! Thousands of us have been testing ways to make information overload disappear by focusing on our personal information goal. And some participants are indeed starting to feel the life-changing magic of saying no to information overload and yes to focus.
During my son's orchestra concert at school tonight, when the woman in front of me was taking pictures and posting them to Facebook.
Even though it took about half the day to really kind of get into it,
I made myself focus on being at school, taking in the landscape of it.
But I just spent the time enjoying listening to my son's concert.
It was so worth it.
And I suddenly felt incredibly grateful.
Oh my God, I could listen to these voice memos that you guys have been sending in all day. Please keep them coming. And you can see pictures of people's magical phones, their anti-memes, all kinds of stuff you and other listeners have shared at wnyc.org/infomagical. But let's get on with today, okay? I know you're excited, or maybe worried. Anyway, day 4. Today, you need to do something with all that wonderful goal-oriented information that you've been taking in. Discuss something you've heard or read or watched with someone, anyone, by phone or in person, with your voices, for at least 7 minutes. Now, why 7 minutes?
Hello, here I am.
Best-selling author and MIT psychology professor Sherry Turkle is back to explain why a good conversation takes a minimum of 7 minutes to blossom into a mind meld. And she also explains how she actually came to this concept.
One of the young women I interviewed said that there is a rule of 7, a 7-minute rule.
Yeah.
And she said, it takes 7 minutes to figure out if a conversation is going to be interesting. And 7 often boring minutes. It's not that people come in and it happens.
Bam, you're having
it's happening.
Crazy
this
interesting
thing.
conversation.
It takes 7 minutes to kind of feel your bodies in the room, to sort of get used to each other. She says, I'm not usually willing to put in my 7 minits.
She could be doing the 7-minute workout instead.
Exactly. And then, so she said, I'd rather text than talk. Well, if people say that, I follow up with, so what's wrong with conversation? I found that people have a ready answer. They say things like, well, here's one 18-year-old. Conversation, I'll tell you what's wrong with conversation. It takes place in real time, and you can't control what you're going to say. And yeah, that's exactly what's wrong with conversation. But that's exactly what's right with conversation. In other words, what's with us that we've gotten afraid or reticent about revealing ourselves to each other in the spontaneity of face-to-face talk, and would rather be able to compose ourselves, which is what we can do when we text and are able to edit, and we're able to be perfect, as so many people told me.
It's almost like the awkward pauses and weird moments are when we show a little bit of vulnerability.
Yeah. And people talk about being afraid of those lulls. One young woman said she didn't like the boring bits of conversation. And the notion that people shouldn't have boring bits, I mean, that is what human conversation is about. And if we think of conversation as this sort of back and forth of information, it becomes transactional. And I tell you, the way this is dramatized for me is that my students don't want to come to office hours. And when I ask them why, They say, because I can write you a perfect email in which I describe my problem exactly, and then you can write me a perfect email back in which you'll give me the maximum help. So their notion of what's going to happen is transactional. But when I think back to what happened to me in college that lit me up, is that somebody cared about me, showed an interest in me. I can't do that if my students are thinking they're going to write me a perfect email and I'm going to write them a perfect email. That's not where it's going to happen.
Dr. Sherry Turkle's latest book is Reclaiming Conversation. And it is time for us to talk the talk, friends. Specifically, talk about something you learned this week as you focused on your information goal. Maybe you chose to be more in touch with family. Well, here's the perfect day to move past the Facebook page and call Uncle Philip. Today, we need to skip the texting, the G-chats, the email, and make sure we get in one single 7-minute conversation with your voice. It could be with a coworker, someone on the bus, your child, your mom or dad. There might be some lulls and awkward moments, but Sherry Turkle says we need to keep going to get to the magic, that magical connection. Give it a try. Any personal revelations you want to share, you can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, and wnyc.org/infomagical, or email us at notetoself@wnyc.org. We might ask to follow up with a phone call because we love talking to you. Infomagical, Day 4. The whole Note to Self team wishes you a magical connection. I'm Manoush Samarodi. Note to Self and Infomagical are a production of WNYC Studios. Rabbits get pulled out of hats every single day here. Tomorrow, Day 5, the final day, a magical life. Oh yeah, we're going for it.